So one of my favorite YouTubers, YourMovieSucks, made a 4-part video on things that scared the shit out of him when he was a kid. He tagged a few people to make videos of their own and made a playlist out of it. Ever since then, however, YouTubers I watch who weren't even tagged started making their own entries, and I thought, well, fuck it, why not make one of my own? It's a fun thing to talk about, and I have some that I haven't seen other people cover yet, so yeah, let's do this. Who here's played Super Mario 64 when you were younger? If you raised your hand, then you probably already know where this is going. The piano from the Haunted Mansion level, fuck that thing. Do I really need to explain why? Didn't this scare most kids who played it? It was a very quiet level until you walked in this room and then... It's not exactly an original thing to bring up, as I have seen it on many lists before, but it's really there for a reason. Even as an adult, I don't especially love entering the piano room. As a kid, however, I wouldn't even play the Haunted Level Mansion because of it. It was just too much for me. This one is a little more specific. When I was in the 4th grade, we went to see the Nutcracker as a school trip. No clue why they thought a bunch of 4th graders would enjoy this, but our elementary school was full of terrible ideas. I mean, I get they want to give us a chance to enjoy the fine arts, but isn't it obvious that we're too young to take something like this seriously? I'm sure there were some kids who really enjoyed it, but a majority weren't going to. I remember they took us to an orchestra that went on for 2 hours and a lot of the students fell asleep. We then had to write an apology letter for falling asleep even though we didn't all do it. But you're the ones who sent a bunch of 10-year-olds to listen to an orchestra. What did you think was gonna happen? I could imagine high school students enjoying a trip like this, but 10-year-olds? This is on you, Nazareth Elementary. I got off topic. The Nutcracker was pretty boring, but the one thing that kept me interested was the Nutcracker costume, because it was a horrible, unsettling costume. I remember sitting next to the assistant teacher during the show and the Nutcracker appeared on stage. He jumped out with loud jump scare music. I'm not sure if it was supposed to be jump scare music, but it came off that way. Anyways, this scared the shit out of me and made me jump out of my seat, and the assistant teacher laughed at me. Yeah, laugh it up, bitch! She was a nice lady. Anyways, Nutcrackers are already a little bit unsettling, but honestly, I kind of liked them. Call me a weirdo, but I actually have a few set up in my room all year. Kind of grew a liking to them when I was a kid because my grandma always had a huge collection out every year, and I thought they were cool. But watching one move around was a lot more unsettling and honestly affected my sleep for the next couple of weeks. I kept fearing that I was going to jump out of my closet with that loud jump scare noise. I mean, okay, at the age of 10 I knew it wasn't actually going to happen, but the thought was enough to keep me up at night. Magic School Bus, the Pluto episode. Nothing about this episode was really that scary, it was just a normal episode. The kids take a trip to Pluto, we learn a thing or two about it, it's a standard school bus episode. Then Arnold takes his fucking helmet off and dies. Okay, he doesn't die somehow, but his face freezes up. It may not seem like the scariest visual, and it really wasn't, but I think it's the most shocked I ever was as a kid when watching a TV show. I mean, I couldn't process what I just saw. He took his fucking space helmet off on Pluto. What the fuck is wrong with you? I get he was pissed at his cousin and all, but that's unbelievably drastic. I remember asking so many questions after seeing this. I went to my parents asking if you took your helmet off on Pluto, could you survive? And that's when I learned you wouldn't even be able to be on that planet in the first place. Well, planet at the time. I think they changed that in 2006. I didn't get nightmares from this, and I was able to rewatch it without getting freaked out. But the first time I watched it, I was thinking about it for days. I don't think I was ever this shocked or caught off guard by anything I saw as a kid. The ghost from Mario 64, the one waiting for you at the end of the hallway. This one actually bothered me way longer than I'd like to admit. He has the same simple and cute design that all the other boos have. He's the only one in the entire game that will not hurt you or even chase after you, and the ones by the fountain and in the level who could hurt you never scared me at all. So why is this? Well, to be honest, it kinda comes out of nowhere. At the start of the game, he isn't there, but as you collect stars, he just suddenly appears. As a kid, this caught me off guard, and I really didn't like walking into a room only to see something staring at me from the end of the hallway. It wasn't nightmare fuel or anything, but it did freak me out enough to where whenever I needed to go in the room with the hallway and didn't want to face the ghost alone, I would actually get my mom to come in the room with me, just so I could enter this room without facing the ghost by myself. My mom had so much patience because she would honestly do it every single time I asked her to. Now, this is when I was a little kid. It's honestly one of my earliest memories, but I have to be honest, this guy still kind of bothered me even as I got older. I don't remember exactly when he stopped freaking me out. I mean, I wasn't getting my mother anymore as I got older, but I tried to avoid coming to any contact with that hallway when entering the basement because, again, I really didn't like seeing something just randomly appear at the end of a hallway. It bothered me more so the first time it appeared because I wasn't expecting it, but after that I would be fine. Chuck E. Cheese animatronics. Yeah, this isn't a new one. Unsettling movement will always be kinda creepy, and as a kid, these things were really hard to look at. I remember one day when I was little, my brother Eric and I went to a Chuck E. Cheese with my mom, but I was so freaked out by the memory of the animatronics from a previous visit that I refused to even go inside the building. So we went to the park instead. Before I outgrew Chuck E. Cheese, I did manage to overcome this fear simply by facing it. I was at a friend's birthday party and I didn't want to be seen as a gigantic pussy, so I walked over to the stage with everyone else. And within a few minutes, I was able to relax and realize there was no real reason to be afraid. The fear actually made me have a lot of respect for the first Five Nights game. It's unfortunate that the games went into a horrible direction with a story that doesn't even make remote sense and seems to be made up as it's going along without really explaining anything. But I have high hopes for the movie. Animal Crossing is probably the pinnacle of innocence for me. Honestly, whenever I hear that main theme from the first game, I am immediately reminded of the sweetest memories of my childhood. But there was one factor in the game that kinda tampered with my enjoyment, and that is the now optional character Mr. Resetti. Yeah, this guy actually got so many complaints that you have the option to exclude him in the newest game, New Leaf. Now at first I found Mr. Resetti to be kind of amusing, having fun watching him get more and more pissed every time you reset the game, but one day while playing the game I forgot that I didn't save the previous time and he got me by surprise. After this happened, I kinda grew a little bit of a fear for this character because this happened pretty often. I would forget to save or our power would go out, and the next time I played I would have completely forgotten that he was about to pop up, and it kinda served as a jump scare every time he did. And the more I really started to look at the design of this character, the more it freaked me out. I mean, his normal appearance is fine, but his appearance when he's pissed, yeah, it's kinda horrifying. I was pretty young when I played Animal Crossing for the first time, and I became pretty frightened of this character to the extent that I sometimes had a hard time getting to sleep. It's kinda stupid because this character was really silly. He simply tells you not to reset your game, but remembering that face and the temper this character had, it made me vision him randomly popping out of nowhere and going apeshit. It made it to the point where every time I turned on the game I was afraid he'd pop up, even if I was certain I saved the last time. He kinda brought this unpleasantness to a game that I loved otherwise. It got worse in Wild World because he doesn't even give you the same number of warnings as he does in the first game, so when he lost his temper in that one it completely caught me off guard. I honestly had a lot of nightmares with this character in them. With that being said, I never hated him. I liked him just like I liked all the other Animal Crossing characters and found his outbursts funny. And while he did freak me out a bit, I still intentionally resetted just to see him in every installment of the game I owned. Though I will admit he still makes appearances in my nightmares from time to time. Never as the main cause of fear of that nightmare, but even as a 21-year-old, he shows up a good 3 to 5 times a year. Don't get me wrong, he doesn't scare me anymore. But I think he may have developed a permanent spot in my nightmares. Courage the Cowardly Dog is a series that's known for freaking people out. There are episodes that parody R-rated movies, take on adult themes such as prostitution and abuse, and some really, really awful CGI. No matter who you are, if you watch this show, you have that one episode that was too much for you, and there's always a wide variety of episodes those were. I've heard people say Find the Slab was the one that fucked them up, You Aren't Perfect, Courage, the weird ghost head guy, the fucking stop motion girl, and all of these are very reasonable. And when I tell you which episode that one was, you'll likely laugh your ass off because it's probably the dumbest one that could have gotten to me, and to this day, no one has ever agreed with me that it's the scariest or even close to the scariest episode of the show. Human Habit Trail. Why this one? Well, it's really a combination of everything in the episode. The design and voice of that gerbil bothered me. The way his eyes popped out and how far apart they were made him unsettling. When he got pissed, that expression got a lot worse. The music in this episode varied from high-pitched to unnerving, giving a strong feeling of dread as the main antagonist met his fate. I'm yet to rewatch this episode as I plan on making a separate video where I rewatch it for the first time since I was 5 or 6, but I do remember that even the story was really disturbing, with a fair amount of commentary as well. Basically, it's just the animal research lab switched. Instead of humans doing tests on small animals, it's animals doing tests on small humans. The message it's trying to portray is very obvious as an adult, but as a kid I saw it as downright disturbing. Out of all the stuff in this episode that bothered me, I think the Gerbil World song is what got me the most. It's kind of like hearing a nursery rhyme while walking through an empty playground on a dark, cloudy day. There's essentially nothing threatening about it. It's just off-putting, creepy, and I think that's the best way to describe this episode. Creepy. I thought the design was creepy. I thought the music was creepy. I thought the story was creepy, and I thought the end of the episode was the creepiest thing I've ever seen on this show. I remember the fear I felt when I watched this episode. I remember every time this episode came on, I would immediately turn the TV off. It bothered me so much that for the longest time I avoided Courage, just because the chance that this episode might come on. I can't give a definite answer on why this one bothered me more than all the other episodes, but thinking about it from a psychological standpoint, I think it might be a combination of innocence and horror that really got to me. Most Courage villains were obvious villains. They didn't freak me out because I knew what to expect with them. I didn't know what they were going to do, but I knew they were bad and that was enough. I think the reason this one was probably so bad for me is because the main villain of this episode was a gerbil. Not a ghost, not a demon, but a gerbil wearing people clothes. Not exactly a threatening image, but despite this there was still something off about him, but I wasn't sure what. Everyone I knew as a kid thought this episode was hilarious because the main villain was a gerbil with a silly voice. For me, it went against everything I knew as what the bad guy was, and therefore it scared me. I'm embarrassed to say that this guy was one of my true childhood terrors. I had no specific order with this list. It's kind of hard to determine which one of these freaked me out the most as a kid because they all had the same effect on me for the most part. I'd say the Magic School Bus was probably the most mild and that the Human Habitrail was probably the most extreme of the ones I've mentioned. I only say this because while this wasn't a countdown video, this one scared me more than anything else ever did as a kid. For the longest time, it really was a suppressed memory, but when thinking about topics for this video, an old friend came to mind. And this wasn't from a TV show, this wasn't from a video game, this wasn't something popular like all the other things I've mentioned. This was truly hard to come across. When I was in the 2nd grade, we took a field trip to a place that had a lot of human body exhibits. There was a giant brain that you could go into and watch a movie that took place in first person. There was a giant nose that would spray water on you with a loud sneeze effect, you know, stuff like that. And for the most part, it was a lot of fun. But before we were allowed to wander around and check all of it out, we had to listen to a small presentation. It was pretty quick, so none of us really minded that much, but at the end of it, they had a surprise for us. They took out a robot that resembled a female human body named Pam. She would speak to us while moving around and talking about the human body, and this really wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the fact that she had a transparent body and you could see all of her organs. This fucking horrified me. Everyone else seemed to enjoy it, but I was set in an immediate panic. I didn't like watching it move. I didn't like its voice. I was horrified of the way it looked. I wanted to leave. I really, really wanted to leave. I had nightmares of Pam every once in a while for a whole year, and in my dreams she could move her legs, and in my dreams she would hurt people, and I know it sounds a little twisted for an 8-year-old's dream, but yeah, I was pretty terrified of this thing, and I didn't ever want to see it again. We went again the following year. Though the presentation was very different this year, so I thought to myself, hey, maybe Pam won't be here this time. I didn't see her anywhere. Everything's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay. 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 It's gonna be just fine. But it wasn't okay. After the presentation, they said the dreaded words, "Before you leave," and opened a curtain that had Pam behind it. And I don't care what the other students thought of me, I closed my eyes and covered my ears for the entire Pam talk. I was not about to do that again. I was genuinely terrified of her. So here we are years later, and I couldn't find pictures anywhere. Now again, I don't have a clear memory of where this place was or what it was even called. In my memory, I was thinking it was called the Wellness Center. But every time I looked it up, I got a place for adults. Where's the giant nose that sneezed on people? Come on, guys. So I just started typing in Pam the transparent robot. Got nothing. Transparent human body, not what I'm looking for. Pam this, Pam that, you get the picture. I wasn't getting any results. My good friend Chris even joined me on Skype one day in my efforts, trying to help me find it based on what I described to him. No luck. I called up Gage because 3rd grade is actually the year I met him, and we went on that field trip together. He remembered what I was talking about, but didn't remember any of the details. I started mentioning a bunch of people I went to school with. No luck. I asked my mom because she chaperoned one year. No luck. I started looking for lists of field trips my school went to back in 2003 and 2004, but couldn't find shit. What the hell? I couldn't find this thing anywhere. Eventually, I came across Juno, the transparent woman, and thought, yeah, this is kind of like what I remembered. The position looks different, but maybe you can just move her arms and legs around. I looked more into Juno and started thinking, well, if I can't find Pam, I can just show Juno and say she was like this. Hell, there was even a picture of her standing on a cylinder next to the curtains like Pam did, so I thought, yeah, I could have just gotten the name wrong. Maybe Juno could be the accurate thing to talk about in my video. So Juno, I appreciate you being my standby. But I was still kind of bothered that I couldn't find Pam anywhere. But a few days later, after more research and many advanced Google searches, I came across a list of transparent robots and places they'd be presented at. When I clicked on the website, it seemed like it was a pretty dated website. Like, this is old and not a thing that is still currently happening. It's just an old schedule that no one ever took down. I scrolled through the list and found Easton, PA, which is 15 to 20 minutes away from where I live, and then I saw the name of the place. It wasn't the Wellness Center, it was the Weller Center. So I checked which of the transparent women visited the Weller Center, and there she was. Tam. Not Pam, it was Tam. Tammy. I was remembering as Pam, but Tam stands for Transparent Anatomical Mannequin. It's too perfect, it made too much sense, and when I saw the pictures, it was her, and the memories came crawling back. The terror, the horror. She's actually a lot less scary than Juno, though. Yeah, kind of glad I got her instead of Juno. May have not survived Juno. No offense, Juno. Again, I appreciate being my stand-in for a while. But there she was. I was reunited with my old nightmare buddy. It seems that she's no longer running an exhibit, and honestly, I'm kind of saddened to see that. I mean, I know she was my main cause of nightmares as a kid, but it seemed like a lot of people thought Tam was cool, and I'm not against the presentation, just the nightmare feel it caused me. Upon doing my final research for this video, I found a small video clip of a Tam presentation. It was just like I remembered it, and I have to admit, I felt a good bit of terror from it. I kind of didn't want to finish watching the clip. It wasn't as bad as it was back then, but I have to admit it was like revisiting an unpleasant memory, and something about that made it pretty uncomfortable. Well, those are my childhood traumas, and who knows? Maybe Tammy will be giving my dreams a visit sometime in the near future.
Hello, my name is Tammy. It stands for Transparent Anatomical Mannequin. My skin is transparent so that you can see the anatomy of a normal female body. As I turn, you can see that my right half shows some muscles. My muscles acting together make it possible for me to move in many ways.
So that was my entry in the childhood trauma series started by Adam from YMS, and special thanks to him for inspiring this whole thing. If my videos seem too similar to his, I apologize for that. I won't be doing too many videos in this nature, but I think he started a fun little trend with it, and it's more than just kind of just a simple, silly trend, because it's actually opening up a pretty interesting discussion, in my opinion. So I'm gonna rip off one more thing from his video and tag a few friends of mine who agreed to make their own video because they're also interested in the subject. So you can expect videos from The Angry Asshole, Chris Sora, Jeremy Cadle, Stupid Smash Bros, and Smorty Smort. All make fantastic stuff. Check them out. I'll have them linked in the description below so you can subscribe to them and get an early access to their video. Or you can just check my playlist out when I make it, but I'd recommend checking out their channels because it's good stuff. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Again, I have a couple special thanks here. Tariq Jawani for helping me with the opening shot. He did a few of the cornfield shots at the beginning. All the musicians who gave me permission to use their work. I went around on Newgrounds, YouTube, Bandcamp, asked permission to use all this great music, and everyone was so cool about it. So check out their links, just listen to their music, it's great, and maybe even use it in some of your videos, just ask, and most of them are very cool about it. I want to give a special thanks to Cody Hart, aka Smorty Smort, for doing the little Mario drawing during the piano segment. Just a quick thing I asked him to do pretty last second, and he was down to do it, and it's just nice to kind of get early collaboration with him because you're probably going to be seeing stuff from me and him in the future. Stuttering my words today, God.
and everyone who agreed to make their own video at the end of this one and has subscribed to the new channel, because this is a new channel. This is the first major video of Slate Side Productions. There's been a few videos, but they've all been like podcasts or vlogs. This is the first video that had like a month of production put into it. It took me a long time to make it, and I'll admit, like, if I would have dedicated a lot more time to it, I probably would have been able to finish it in less than a month. But, you know, school, just finished school, had work, busy guy. But I hope it was worth it. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. Gonna be making more videos like this, gonna be actually making some films, doing more vlogs, doing more of the Derailed podcast. I'm just getting started. I'm kind of discovering myself on this channel, but it is gonna be mainly revolving around film discussion and making films. A lot of my videos in the past have been really random or sketch comedy, and while I'm not saying there won't be anything like this on this channel, it's always going to be connected to film in some way, and it's always going to just have a lot of ideas, and I'm definitely trying to figure out what this channel is going to become. I do have a basic idea of what I want it to become, and it is going to be my platform for uploading my films, my newer movies at least. So stay tuned, some really good stuff coming out in the future, and join me on this ride. It's going to be a fun one. Thanks for watching, guys.